You know, there are some hazards with bees that we want to obviously bring to your attention. So, you know, the unfortunate part is some people don't know they're allergic to bee stings until it's too late. So, in this situation, you know, you got bees out there that, you know, you come in contact in a number of different ways. Hopefully I can teach you today some things to look for and, you know, some of the different types of wasps and bees that are out there. But the one big health or medical concern that we want to bring to your attention is that anaphylaxis is an allergic reaction to a bee or wasp sting. The challenge with it is you get obviously a lot of swelling. Typically, you can sometimes have difficulty with breathing. And if you notice that you're wheezing or having any challenges with your throat swelling or your lips, you know, swelling up, it's important that you get yourself to some medical attention. If the symptoms get really bad, obviously you might even want to call 911. So just pay attention to some of those different things that are out there. And the one thing I do like to bring up is that there are some real vulnerable areas of your body that if you get stung, it could be really bad. So anywhere in your face, your mouth, around your ears, those are areas that can swell shut and cause you difficulty with breathing. And that's where the real threat comes into play. So if you're planning on, you know, trying to combat or go after these stinging insects yourself, we always recommend, you know, get yourself some kind of protective equipment, personal protective equipment. As you can see in the picture here, this is a bee suit. You can get these out online. Amazon sells them. You can go to some of your local bee supply houses. So Dedant is one of them. Isabees is a local one here in St. Louis that you can get these type of suits. But these are good to have if you're going to try and combat these insects on your own. There are a couple of them that I would recommend letting the professionals take care of, and we'll talk about that here in a few minutes. But if you are going to go out there and try to control them, the one thing I like to explain to folks is bees and wasps have kind of a flight pattern, just like the airports. You know, they come in on one end of the airport and they fly out on the other. You can recognize that by that flight, and if you're going to treat yourself, try to stay in the middle of that and get out of that flight pattern, and that'll help you prevent yourself from getting stung. So even with the best bee suits out there, you know, they may find their way up your pants leg or come in underneath the neck of the suit if you don't have it secured very well. And obviously we want to keep you from having that uncomfortable situation happen. So some other things you can do is treat at night. Generally you'll have all the bees or the wasps back in the nest in the evening. And that gives you the best chance to take care of them when they're kind of all back in that nest. If you're going to treat it during the day, you have to understand that you have some of the workers that are out away from the nest foraging for food, and they may come back multiple times over multiple hours for that fact. So if you do use a pesticide, I always recommend you read the label and follow the safety instructions on it as well. And then it might even behoove you to maybe even put some of that tape or caution tape out around the area where you treat, because you're going to aggravate those bees and you don't want anybody else coming up and getting stung as well. So if you are going to be outside, you know, obviously we've got the holiday weekend coming up. You know, make sure you're covering your food. Where we get involved is, you know, we get the calls is when people get stung, you know, because they took a drink of their soda or something. And that's a difficult situation because I don't know if there's a nest around that area or not, but the bee came in and was attracted to those sweet sodas or sweet drinks that you have. So be careful if you're doing that. You're out in the summertime enjoying your picnics, you know, limit your perfumes and your colognes. Those are some things that will attract the bees and wasps to you as well. But I always do the trick of, you know, if I'm drinking a soda or having an adult beverage, I tend to flick my can or my bottle to make sure I don't have anything in there. And that hopefully that keeps you from getting stung in the mouth. So talking about bees and wasps, you know, they're two different insects for that fact. Typically bees have more of a hairy body. If you can see in the picture here, we have a honeybee here. The hairs on the honeybee help them with pollination. Your wasps tend to be more of a smooth body insect, and they're a little bit more aggravating than what the honeybees are. Honeybees generally only get aggressive when you're messing around with their nest or their brood. Wasp can be aggravated just by swatting or swinging at them. So that's another thing we mentioned to you on the preventative side, is just stay calm. Don't swing and swat at them. And I know that might be hard to do, but you know, that is the issue that'll help you from getting stung. So the one thing about wasp, as far as a beneficial side for them, is they do control a lot of other plant pests that might be out there on your ornamentals or your shrubs. So if you can live with them in your environment, they do pose a benefit as far as that goes. With the bees, obviously, I think we all know pollination is very important to the food that we grow, and it's very important that we try to do the responsible things for honeybees. Typically, the only times we'll typically get involved with honeybee issues is if there's a health threat or a property damage threat. So if you have those issues, you know, you can give us a call and we'll help you out with that. So the different types of nests that you might come across, the two here on the left, there's two different things going on in this picture here. So you actually have nesting here. They're building this hive out of wax. So they then fill up these wax cavities with honey, and then they cap it off, and that's kind of their food storage. In the left picture here, which is honeybees as well, this is actually a swarm of honeybees. You have a queen somewhere typically in the middle there. What's happened and why she does this typically in the spring is they basically outgrown the cavity that they were living in, and she goes off to basically bud off or split the colony and grow the colony in another spot. So that's the two situations with honeybees. These are some of the others that are really kind of the dangerous ones that we come across. Obviously, you got a bald-faced hornet's nest here. They'll make this in trees and shrubs, and they'll even attach it right to your house or your building. So a very aggravated bee, be careful, or wasp for that fact, be careful with this one here. Your paper wasp are the ones that'll make them in your sheds or around your garage or your windows. They can be pretty agitated as well, so be careful in that environment with this guy. And then our yellow jacket nest here. The thing about yellow jackets is they tend to make their nest in voids. So you can see a ground nest here in this picture. There might have been a mole run or a pocket of soil that, you know, had this pocket in it they found. And what they'll do is they'll go in there and kind of start their little paper nest and then enlarge it. And you'll literally see these wasps bringing out soil and kind of discarding it as they excavate out this large cavity. So there are other nesting areas for yellow jackets. This is up in an attic, and you can see how large this nest is, but that can be how large they are underground as well. So you don't tend to see them this big until you get a little bit further into the season, and that's usually late summer. And you can imagine, you know, thousands, maybe 2,000, 3,000 of these yellow jackets coming out and trying to sting you, and how that can really pose you a threat. So be aware of your environment when you're out there. So as I mentioned, these were the three big ones, the three nastiest ones out there, the ones that get agitated the most. You know, the movie My Girl, where the little boy Macaulay Culkin throws a rock at the nest. That is going to agitate these wasps. So anytime you're disturbing their nest, they're going to do everything in their power to defend it. So observe from afar. Try not to disturb them unless you're fully protected. Otherwise, get a professional out there and let them handle it as far as that goes. So it's important to you know, correctly and properly identify the stinging insect that you think you might have. There are some of them that don't even have stingers. So it's important to know the species that you're going after. The mud dauber here, they can be purple in color, they can be yellow and black and burgundy in color, but a lot of these all look very similar as far as that goes. Now, in the natural world, this color helps protect them from predators that might be feeding on them. So in the case of this fly here, you know, a bird might try to eat that fly, and they figure out that they don't want to do that because it may sting them. Well, that helps protect this hover fly, or bee mimic is another name for some of these, but that's just Mother Nature's way of protecting themselves. So yellow jackets, probably the worst one in this picture here, as far as probably the most threatening. These are the paper wasp here. They can be pretty agitated as well, but some of these, you know, are solitary, meaning there's only typically one in the whole family. So their job is to go, you know, gather pollen, food, lay an egg, or in some cases they're parasitic, meaning they actually prey on other insects, larvae. In the case of the cicada here, they actually go and get a cicada, they paralyze it with their sting, and then they, you know, parasitize it with an egg, and that egg then develops off of that cicada. And that generally takes upwards of a year for that to happen. So this is the time of the year the cicadas start coming out. We tend to see the cicada killers, which is probably the largest wasp that we deal with in our area. They can be upwards of 1.5 inches in length. They generally hover on the ground, and they make a ground nest that they basically impregnate that cicada into the hole. So, but some of these, you know, this flower wasp, you know, there's really no threat to it. You know, if you let them be, there's really no issue with them as far as that goes. So, as I talked about the parasitizing side of it, you know, you've got a parasitic wasp here that, you know, they're going after some type of a plant pest here. They impregnate it with an egg. That egg then develops into a larva, and then they parasitize this insect. Some of the mud daubers actually go out there and actually snatch some of the spiders off of the webs. They do the same thing, and then that's what their host, or their egg basically hosts off of. So here's an example of that cicada killer nest that I told you about. You can see how large this wasp is. They've got to be a pretty hardy wasp in order to attack a cicada and actually, you know, control them to the point where they can get them into this little hole here. So the hover bees and the bee mimics, as I said, they're basically harmless. You know, these are the ones, some people call them sweat bees. You know, they'll actually get out there and you can kind of feel them. You know, they're flapping their wings rapidly, and you feel that air, and that kind of can be irritating, but they are harmless. They will land on you and actually, you know, consume the salt potentially coming out of your pores. They are pollinators. They can help with pollination, and they should not be of any concern to you as far as that goes. So pretty docile insect as far as that goes. With that, thank you for attending our webinar today. We do have, you know, $35 off specials for stinging insects, the moles, rodents, and other mosquito issues. And if you need help with identification of some things, we've got some folks out there that can help you with that. Otherwise, if you have your own pest control operator, I'm sure they can help you do that as well. But keep an eye out. We do have another webinar coming up in July 27th. We'll be talking about ground recluse spiders. As the temperatures heat up, you know, they tend to push down into the living spaces of the home, and we'll be talking about that in July. So with that, thank you. Sarah, do we have any questions today?
It doesn't look like we do, but we do have a thank you from Ashley saying this was very informative.
Very good. Thank you, Ashley, for attending.
It looks like we might have a question from Rosemary.
Okay, go ahead.
Rosemary, if you don't mind putting it in the chat. I see that you've raised your hand.
Can you unmute her? I don't think there's that many people on the
call.
Yeah,
I'll go ahead. Yeah. All right, Rosemary, I'm going to allow you to talk.
You're muted, Rosemary, if you're trying to talk. Oh, there you go. Do you have a question for us? I'm not hearing it.
Okay. We can follow up also after the fact. Rosemary is a current customer, so we can reach out. We have her contact information. Okay. Maybe she was just giving us a high five. Could have been one of those too.
Yeah, there you go. Well, thanks for attending, Rosemary. Thank you for being a customer. We appreciate you here at Rottler. So thank you, everybody else.
All right, thanks, Jay.
Thanks.